And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. Catherine, I seem to be having some technical difficulties. How do I play a Google slide presentation from the drive?
I never have.
Uh-oh.
Do you have quick download speed? You
Oh, present.
download it very quick? Okay.
Oh,
thank goodness.
Sorry, everyone. Minor technical difficulty. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Alyssa Key. I am the current chair for the first generation student group for this year. And thank you all for logging on tonight to join in our event. And welcome to our biannual general meeting. Every year we hold a general meeting in the fall and the spring, and on behalf of the group, I can say that we genuinely appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. During our meeting tonight, you can engage with us on Twitter using the hashtag FGS, all caps, _fall 2020, and by tagging us via @SJSU _firstgen, as you see on the screen. As our social media coordinator, Catherine will be monitoring our social media feeds during our meeting tonight. You can also connect with us on Facebook and LinkedIn, as well as our website, where you can become a member of our Google group if you haven't already. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat during the night, and one of our leadership team members will help you out. Now, without further ado, let's introduce our current leadership team for this school year. As I said at the start of the event, my name is Alyssa Key, pronouns she, her, and hers. I am currently finishing up my second and last year here at SJSU's MLIS program and will be graduating next spring if everything goes accordingly. And I intend to pursue either public and academic librarianship post-graduation. I have been a part of iSchool's first generation student group since last fall. And when I joined the leadership team as the blog editor for spring 2020 after the previous blog editor graduated last December, sorry, I made notes here. We are currently looking for a blog editor to join our team during this school year, so please feel free to reach out to me via our group's email address if you have any questions about the role. And you can visit our website for more information, both of which will be shared again later on in the event. Audrey, do you want to take the mic and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Audrey Hockenberry. I'm right smack dab in the middle of my plan here. I will likely graduate next fall if everything goes according to plan. And I'm way more interested in academic libraries, preferably somewhere nearby. As far as first generation is concerned, I joined the group last spring and joined the leadership team this summer. So this is my first semester being on the leadership team. And yeah.
Very quickly, Alyssa, can you share your screen?
I thought I was. It's showing on my end, so, oh no. Apologies. Share. Okay, can everyone see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You present. Apologies for that little mistake. Okay, Samantha, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Samantha, and I'm the current secretary for the group. And I started my MLIS journey in January this year, and I plan to graduate next May. And currently I'm on the public librarianship track, and I'm doing a handful of internships and volunteer activities. So if you have any questions, feel free to email us or just drop your question in the chat.
Catherine, do you want to go next?
Yes, sorry about that. Hello, my name is Catherine Liebau Nelson. I will be graduating from the program in August of next year. I am the social media coordinator, and I have been since fall of 2019, so it's been a year now. I work as a library technician in a elementary school library, and I am the current editor-in-chief for the Student Research Journal as well. All right, go ahead, Jessica.
Hey everyone, I'm Jessica Cruz, and this is my third semester in the MLIS program. I'm leaning toward public or special librarianship, but I'm really honestly open to probably almost any information or data related job. I'm currently the webmaster for the group, and I have been since I think February of this year. I really love being part of this group because it connects me with people who have gone through a lot of similar things and faced a lot of similar obstacles, especially when it comes to pursuing higher education. And it definitely makes me feel like I'm not alone. So.
Thank you, Jessica. Next up, we have our faculty advisor, Dr. Anthony Bernier, sharing his research.
Hi, y'all. I am Anthony Bernier. I'm a full-time member of the faculty. I started my library school program in 1984 at UC Berkeley just last week, apparently. Good. So I am I'm the faculty advisor, but as you can see, we have a very strong leadership team, and they're the ones who really pull all the weight and do all the work. I just get to hang around sometimes. The role that I play currently, in addition to faculty advising, is that I am actually conducting active research, and I suspect many of you were a part of the interviews that we were conducting as a consequence of having been awarded an ALICE grant last year. ALICE stands for the Association of People Who Teach Library School, and so upon having done a pretty thorough literature review, particularly focused on graduate programs, it was not hard to realize that not only was there very little research conducted on first generation graduate students at all, except a little bit at the PhD level, but very little at the master's level. None of it was conducted whatsoever at the in the library school field, and certainly nothing with compounding those two things on online programs. So our work is innovative for a number of reasons. And we came away after having done some very basic interviews with 3 general areas that sort of sussed out as patterns among the people who are first generation students. And these are the people who are reporting in on themselves. First was that people had varying kinds of experiences and concerns relative to their social and their familial backgrounds. Some people reported, of course, support and lots of help and enthusiasm for going on. Other people were, I wouldn't say prevented, obviously, but they were discouraged from going on. So there's that. The second and third big patterns that we saw emerging from the interviews had to do with a reported lack of confidence in academic skills on a wide variety of topics, everywhere from the granularity of how do I take notes efficiently to reading and all of those kinds of academic skills at the graduate level. And then finally, the third had to do with the notion of building what we call social capital or social connections or networking. How do you do that? When do you start? How do you be good at it? How does it advantage you, especially if you are not used to getting out there and trying to make those contacts? It can be a little difficult. So we found those 3 patterns. We're currently in the process now of conducting and completing analysis of 50 more peer-reviewed, peer-to-peer interviews. And we're going to drill a little bit deeper into the degree of confidence or lack of confidence people have in academic areas. What specifically can we learn? And then the other area that we drilled pretty deeply into is the making of building a social capital. What are the steps? What are the techniques? What are the strategies? What are the snags? What are the resources that people can learn to become better social networking, particularly now during a extremely tough job market? So I will be reporting out on the analysis of those 50 new interviews in our next meeting, which will be in the spring. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But the grant was called Recasting First Generation Student Experience for LIS Success, and it will be an analysis of exclusively San Jose State iSchool students. There are plans afoot. I don't want to go too far in announcing them or going too far in discussing them here, but we are developing some plans to take some of these concerns out to a much larger LIS audience, students and LIS programs throughout the country. So there we go. Anybody have any particular questions or any topics that you'd like me to cover before we move on?
If anyone has any questions, feel free to grab the mic.
Hello, doctor, can you hear me?
Sure can. Go ahead, Danny.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm sure that you know library and information science is overwhelmingly represented by white populations, and I appreciate seeing like non-POC generation students here because that's cool. But I was wondering, do you feel like that might be a connection to why there isn't as much research on first generation LIS student success?
Danny, are you asking if because first generation students tend to come from
communities of color background?
people of color backgrounds, that there's been less research on them? The question about why certain things have been pursued or not pursued is really a difficult one, and it's not one that really has surfaced in the literature. We can speculate and we can have some very informed opinions about that, of course, but there's nothing really that I've seen in the research literature that talks about why.
Do they ever discuss whiteness as a cultural barrier though within LIS programs?
Well, that's great, and that's actually more on the cutting edge. It's flipping the coin or turning the corner. Instead of focusing on people of color, focusing on the assumptions built in, and sometimes we refer to them now, of course, as the privileges built into whiteness. And certainly that is a big problem in library science. But we're not quite there yet. That will be one of the questions and concerns that we bring to the national national study. But the point about looking at first generation experience is that it crosses color and language and cultural background lines, and talks about social class or material conditions primarily. But they are, of course, combined, and now we refer to the term as intersectional, where some of these things overlap and interact with each other all along the way. But your concern bringing up the notion of whiteness is extremely important now, and never more important than now.
Thank you for your answer. I appreciate that.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I do want to say that one of the reasons why I engage in this research, and one of the reasons why I helped initiate the first generation student group, is that I am a first generation student myself, and I have some insight, I would suspect, into some of the challenges that first generation students face. I also relate to the notion of imposter syndrome, and a lot of the faculty that we are going to gradually interview over time in our group has emerged from first generation backgrounds as well. So there is some good sensitivity and some really good support among the faculty for developing these concerns, and hopefully using some of our research to improve the program through classes and through other kinds of activities. Thanks, Elisa.
Thank you, Dr. Runier, for joining us tonight. Now, to introduce our featured speaker for tonight. Dr. José Aguiñaga received his in Educational Leadership from Northern Arizona University in 2012. He also received his MPA from California State University, Long Beach in 2004 and his MLS from the University of Arizona in 1993. In addition to teaching Info 210 Reference and Information Services here at San Jose State University School of Information, he is a full-time academic librarian at Glendale Community College and has been since 2005, and currently serves as the branch coordinator of the North Campus. He has been actively involved in professional library associations and community college organizations, and at this time he is also serving as the ACRL liaison to the American Association of Community Colleges. Thank you, Dr. Aguiñaga, for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Good.
I'm glad to hear that. So thanks for welcoming me to this opportunity to share a few insights about my career path. So I look forward to the dialogue that we'll have and go from there.
So to kick off our discussion for tonight, what was your experience through school as a first-generation student?
Well, that certainly made me reflect with the career path that I had, beginning by first going to my undergraduate institution, University of San Diego, right out of high school. And that experience in itself, the first 3 semesters was volatile for me. It was a shocking experience. Dr. Bernier mentioned about the lack of academic skills, not being prepared. I fit the mold right on the spot. I was having academic issues with my first 3 semesters. And after the 3rd semester, I was politely asked to retreat back, and I was just academically disqualified. So having that as a shock, talk about readjusting. A faculty member did advise me, why don't you go to the community college, regroup yourself, get your skills going, your study skills, and then you can reapply. So I left University of San Diego. And the other thing about me, I'm a San Diego native, so that was the other big thing. So I stayed in San Diego, and I went to Southwestern College, the local community college in my neighborhood. I spent a year and a half there, readjusting my grades, getting the right proper study skills, getting the right mentorship, how to get going again, and reapplied back to University of San Diego. During that time, there were various faculty that I had, and that was fantastic that they guided me. They saw something that I could not see in myself. I just needed to apply myself and use the proper skills, whether it was note-taking, whether it was asking questions in class, and continue with my degree. The reason why I'm talking about my undergraduate is that's part of where I think the seeds for why I pursued library science began. Mm-hmm. The last 2 years of my undergraduate study, I had a work study assignment working at the university library, and my immediate boss was the reference librarian. My basic duty was just to shelve the reference collection, keep things tidy. And during the 2 years I worked with him, Mr. Devin Milner certainly became my first mentor regarding library science. He would ask me, so what are you going to do after you get your undergraduate degree? Which was in international relations as my major, and a minor in Italiano. So it was interesting. I wanted to join the State Department as a diplomat. Obviously that did not pan out, but what I studied and what I learned in my undergraduate program has been quite helpful in my career path, and now where I'm at now with being a librarian for more than 25 years. So I finished and I worked with Mr. Milner, and he kept teasing me to think about library science as a possible career path. And he said, well, you have to go to graduate school to become a librarian. And that left an impression on me. I was unable to get into the State Department because that's a very difficult duty to do. There's various exams you have to pass to be eligible to join the diplomatic corps. So in looking for a job in order to pay my student loans, I joined, of all things, Ford Motor Credit Corporation, which is the finance arm of Ford Motor. And I moved to the Bay Area to work in the city of Pleasanton, California. So Pleasanton is a great place where I spent 4 years. I felt like I was going to school without going to school. In those 4 years, what I experienced, I made great friends working with colleagues of my same age group, but I discovered that it wasn't my passion to be in this profession, in the business profession. And I reflected. And that was one of the first moments I really self-reflected, talking with my mom about my career path with my dad. And I realized that, what do I want to do? What makes me happy? And I decided to go back to San Diego on a vacation to chat with Devin Milner, the librarian I work with, reference librarian. And I had a serious conversation with him, and he said, if you want to go to graduate school, I'll write a reference letter for you, I'll review your essays, so forth, so you can get into library school. And I began that path. By fall of 1992, I began my degree at University of Arizona. And it was the first time I had gone to Arizona, out in Tucson, a different climate for me. I've always been a San Diego, grew up in San Diego and loved California, but Arizona proved to be the right decision. And during that time, I got there in 1992, graduated in 1993. And what you guys are experiencing now, I overheard some of your conversations about finishing up school pretty soon, or within a year you'll be done. But the time you spend in library school is a grand opportunity to discover new friends, new connections you'll have, the networking that you'll be applying. And to address the experience, going to University of Arizona was a welcoming school. The library school was also very welcoming, and working at the university library with part-time positions also gave me different perspective as to what to think about as my career path. I was leaning between academic and public as one of my choices. And when I started to interview for jobs, the first job that I applied for, University of Houston, keep in mind, this position was only meant for a 2-year temporary assignment. And that was the only thing that was guaranteed. I applied for the job, but I also applied for a public library job in the Dallas area. So I had to make another decision. What am I going to do? Which path, which career path? And based on the experience of the interview and that intuition that sometimes tells you which path to take, I pursued going to University of Houston. And that's where I discovered my second mentor, Miss Dana Rooks. At that time, she was the associate dean, then became dean, but she guided me in this career path. She encouraged me to take chances. And during that time, bless you, I think, during that time, it was interesting to experience at a high level of academic institution some possible challenges that would be arising that I would reflect years later as to what was happening at that time. So pretty much I was, began as a social sciences librarian as one of my first jobs, a 2-year assignment again. After 1 year, I was asked by Ms. Dana Rooks if I would accept being the interim library personnel coordinator for the university library. I have no HR experience, but she would guide me. She would serve as my mentor to get me through this process. That in itself opened a vast knowledge area that I wasn't aware of and that I would enjoy, even with the obstacles and challenges of dealing with human resources. So that's some of the experience that I've gone through. I'll be to share more as we continue our conversation. I see that we have another question here with number 2.
Well, looking back, what challenges did you face as a first-generation student? And also I wanted to ask, since you majored in international relations as an undergrad, I'm curious to hear how that informed your approach to librarianship.
Excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Yes, Alyssa. The international relations career major that I decided on was having an interest in political science, diplomacy, going even way back, even before high school. That really got me going. It always, interests me to follow up on that and watching news programs and so forth. But how that assisted me in deciding to pursue the library science field. And I think I overlooked one little thing. Talk about another seed that I always tend to forget. The first summer job I ever had at the age of 14, this was a minimum wage, part-time job during the summer. I worked at the local public library where I grew up in San Isidro, California, a suburb of San Diego. That experience in itself, and then to tie that in with my upbringing with my mom, she was an avid reader. She was quite content, to say the least. So I think having family that supports you directly or indirectly always helps out, and it creates the foundation of who you are and how you're going to pursue the next steps in your life. So in a roundabout way, the international relations degree, and with that type of degree, there's a lot of reading regarding diplomatic history, US history, world history. That instilled in me the obvious knack of continuing with research. And what's one profession where we can always be researching? Being a librarian, especially an academic librarian. So some of the challenges, once again, as I illustrated before, the lack of academic skills. I thought after high school, I was ready. I had the tools. Well, I had some of the tools, but not all the tools. And discovering that and realizing that, don't hesitate, even during that time when I went to school, there are always individuals out there that are willing to help you out and to guide you to the right individuals that can get you going with what you need to do and retool. And I believe in today's world of library science students that are out there, you guys have so many additional tools available at your fingertips, and definitely take advantage of the tools that are offered to you and that you have access to. The other challenges, and I really pondered on these questions, based on the current research that exists on microaggressions. At that time, they were not called microaggressions, but that was quite obvious to me with some of the interaction I had with fellow students, students coming from other lifestyles, more prominent lifestyles, more well-to-do in their upbringing. And at times I felt like I was like, out in the, you stay outside and we'll call you when we need you kind of attitude. So that certainly also made an impression. And I think that also stays in my mind, even currently. I need to be able to welcome students, whether it's a first-generation student or a non-traditional student, into the library, make them feel welcome. This is their place to study, to seek advice, seek information. And that certainly, I took that challenge to make it a positive opportunity in my own development as a librarian.
Now to segue into our third question, do you have any advice that will be beneficial to first-generation students in the iSchool program or beyond into the field? Since we have talked about some of our attendees tonight are close to completing their time here in library school, I'd love to get your feedback on that.
Sure. Another great question. My initial advice would be, if you're a current student, or even if you're thinking beyond getting your master's, if you're thinking of your doctorate, always make sure to find time to enjoy life. Your time of pursuing your master's at this time is a short period of your life. Beyond that, you can continue your studies and your professional development as you desire, but find the time to have those connections with family, with friends, and not be a workaholic in that sense. Find a balance. And by finding that balance, also find your voice of who you are as a professional, because I consider you as professionals now. You're just away from that academic degree, so you can start applying, but you're already are in training, you are in various other opportunities that you're pursuing. You already have that skill set. It's just a matter of redeveloping and retooling that skill set to prepare for your future. And I think you're joining the profession at a fabulous time with all of the upheaval we've had this past year. This is a grand opportunity to take this profession into a new direction. The research that Dr. Bernier made reference to is timely too, because it can have definitely it can have great effects with how we're going to be creating new librarians, information professionals that will join various institutions, whether public or academic, and it can be a great influence in influencing other individuals that are thinking about pursuing their own education. The other advice I would give you is that engage. I heard the word of networking. Whether you're bashful, introvert like I am, I found a way to push myself to go and meet with people. Since we've all been locked down, we've had no in-person conferences, and I think that has been the greatest benefit by going to national, state, and local conferences, of meeting with folks, listening to what's being presented, engaging with audiences, participating with associations, committee work, task force work. You have various opportunities. The moment they see you that you want to get engaged, you want to participate, you want to work with the group, they'll remember you, and you'll be called upon to higher opportunities when you least expect it. So in my career path, I've gone through various ways. I've been since I joined library school, I became an American Library Association member, and I've maintained that membership. I've also belonged to ACRL, Association of College and Research Libraries. And last but not least, I also belong to Reforma, and I joined that group back in library school days. So being engaged with library associations, and even outside of the library profession, is also a great way to mentor, to network, and also discover new ways of doing things that can enhance your work. So the other part, as you've heard about my career path, having academic disqualification issues, I never gave up, even though some people had to kick my bottom to get going at times. Their encouragement made me aware that I wasn't alone doing this. The only time that I felt alone in pursuing an academic degree was when I was pursuing my doctorate, when I began my dissertation defense proposal, and I defended that. Doing the research, that was probably the loneliest time I ever felt, because I was the only one that could complete that. No one else would be there to help me out. So there's various ways one can pursue, whether in the program at this time, but start thinking about your future. And your future can take many directions depending on what's developing. You may have an interest right now, a strong passion for an aspect of librarianship, but as you begin, you may discover another pathway that you may want to consider. But always being involved with library groups, association groups, is a great way to not just to develop your skills, but also to network. And it's interesting that most of these associations currently are now converting their in-person conferences to virtual experiences, whether it's through Zoom, through any of the other tools that are out there. That in itself will also create a different atmosphere on how to maintain that way of networking that was done in person, but now via the web. So those are some of the elements that I would advise you on, and I certainly welcome the opportunity to provide any additional input. There are many opportunities out there, and it's just a matter of when you want to pursue that opportunity. And at times you may have to just push yourself, take a chance. Take a chance. If it doesn't work out, life goes on, retool, and get going again.
Okay. To inquire more about some of the experiences you just talked about, I'm curious for those of our in our audience who may be considering pursuing their PhD after completing library school. I wanted to ask, how did you overcome the challenges that you faced while completing your doctorate degree, and what advice you could give students considering pursuing their PhD who may encounter similar challenges?
Very good question, and there were challenges even at with the doctorate that I pursued. Northern Arizona University offered me an opportunity to join a cohort of other community college faculty that would be interested in pursuing their EDD. And that in itself was a grand opportunity. Being with a cohort where you have some similar interests, similar institution, but we all had different pathways as to what our research would be. During the time that I pursued my degree of 4.5 years, life intervened. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, and that in itself caused deep reflections whether I wanted to pursue the degree or not. And she was diagnosed the first semester after I began the program, and it took a while to sort of, having lengthy discussions with her, and she's like, you don't have to do this. You can just continue with what you've already accomplished, and that's fine. But deep inside of me, I was like, no, I need to do this for her. Not just for her, but for her friends, all the folks that were involved in my development as an individual, as a student. So I felt like there were many folks on my shoulders, and I need to continue that path. Unfortunately, she did pass away in the spring, just before I was going to be defending my dissertation. So she wasn't around when I finally was given the honor of being hooded, as they call it, with the graduation ceremony later that fall. But all of you that are thinking about a doctorate, whether it's in information science, library science, I would strongly encourage you to discover and make sure you have a strong network around you. Family, friends that will support you, because there will be times when things get really rough, whether it's through the academic study, the reading, the writing, the challenges from your dissertation committee. But having that group around you, close friends, family, can get you going in many ways, and also can at least let you focus on your study. I was grateful that I had one blessing in that with my community college, they have sabbaticals available. I applied for a sabbatical, and with a sabbatical, I took a semester off just to work on my dissertation, on writing the final chapters of the dissertation and to defend the dissertation. I took that opportunity by not working, actually working 8 to 5, literally 7 days a week on my dissertation. Because it will expand your mindset in more ways than you can think of. And what you will discover and what you read and what you theorize will also help you out in your development, not just as a doctoral candidate, but also as an individual, as a person that will help you in your own foundation as you continue with your studies.
All great advice, and my deepest condolences to hear about your mom, Dr. Aguiñaga. Now, since this year has been incredibly hard for everyone. I would love to get your input on some advice you may give students who are considering possibly pausing their studies in the midst of our current global pandemic and all of our other current events going on. Since I've heard personally on library Twitter, some people have been second guessing why they're in school right now with everything going on. And it's just been a very hard year for everyone. So I'd love to hear what advice you would give those students who are currently unsure of what their path, their future path going into the next year may entail.
Well, that's a series of very deep questions, and as you've already heard from me, this year has been quite traumatic and unbelievable in many ways, in more ways than I ever thought, especially with my undergraduate background of international relations. The lack of diplomacy has been exhausting, to say the least. But to address your question more pertinent, question that you had, students that are listening to me, that are thinking about maybe pausing, that can only be determined by the individual, by the student that's going on. Your family situation, your close ones that are with you. If there's a way to have a deep conversation with those individuals that are part of your household to make that decision, that can help out. It might not be the best time to continue, but I would encourage you to continue. Based on I've only been with San Jose State since January of this year, teaching Info 210, but I've discovered the wealth of resources, whether it's individuals or tools that are available for San Jose State University students, is very rich. Don't be bashful. Ask for guidance, for assistance, or even just to seek additional input. Ask them. People are here, like myself. I'm a part-time lecturer, but I'm also willing to listen. Keep in mind that as a community college librarian, my experience is dealing with individuals that this is their second opportunity, their third opportunity. But we are here to assist, but also to encourage. And sometimes encouragement, it takes courage to do that at times. If there are some medical situations, financial situations, thankfully there are organizations that are willing to help out, whether it's through the university, through your institution. Another thing that I'm doing currently, I'm a board member of the Community College Faculty Foundation, and we provide emergency grants to students regarding financial situations, whether they have past due gas bills or car bills, etc. We can help out. There are avenues and ways to do this, but it's a matter of just by starting to ask, hey, I'm in this situation, what can I do? And people can assist and direct you in the proper way to hopefully retain you in school. Pursuing a degree, whether you're taking one class at a time or you're taking multiple classes, can be consuming. But there are methods and ways to seek that guidance and assistance to keep you in school, to complete your degree, and then you can continue with that. There are various ways to do this, but I think the first step is to be self-reflective, talk with family, talk with friends, talk with your classmates. And then last but not least, don't forget those that work at San Jose State are also willing to help out.
All wonderful advice. And now to segue into our last question, I see we have about 14 minutes left. How did you develop your teaching and leadership skills throughout your whole academic experience leading up to now?
Yeah, that also was a very good question to sort of ponder on. I think I've always been more of a reflective kind of person. What happens in my life, I reflect and I try to analyze what went well, didn't go that good, and understand what did I learn from that. And I think my experience as a undergraduate student has remained in my mind since then. Being so gung-ho that I'm going to the university and then discovering that I did not have the academic skills, but then discovering that I could obtain those academic skills by, as I made reference to before, going to the community college. And I think now that we've been talking about this, the past 15 years, I've been with a community college. And I think that's one way that I've paid back to what I got out of my career, going back to the community college so I can encourage other students and other members of the public to pursue a degree, whether it's a degree, a certificate, or even just to take a class. Community college, as I think I saw in the chat, somebody made reference as to how much a class was per unit. And at that time when I went, it was also very affordable. And it still is in California, I believe. But how I developed my teaching and leadership skills was with those initial experiences. And then as I began my career as a librarian, academic librarian, being a member of committees, eventually becoming a chair of certain committees through the various library associations. And it's always a matter of taking that chance, doing the best job that I can, seeking input, whether it's through a mentor or through other members of the committee, and taking all of that in, but also teaching students when I've provided information literacy sessions, developing that teaching style. I don't want to just be lecturing to the student. I want to have a conversation about the topic, the content, the subject matter. I may showcase the tools that are available, the online tools, as they are currently now, but you want to have a deep conversation, and deep in not in the sense, but deep in the sense that you want to make them feel comfortable, that also to make them understand if there's only one thing they take away, they know who I am, and they know they can come back to me to seek additional guidance regarding their information needs. So by taking that in mind, I've tried to translate that into my teaching skills, but also into my leadership skills, in that I may be here to lead, but all of us are leaders in the sense in that we all contribute to the leadership success of the group or the organization. So it's always interesting to go through this experience and to reflect on how you develop your own skills. And this is not to say that I finish refining my teaching and leadership skills. That will continue. That will continue until I'm no longer on this earth.
Thank you for all of your wonderful advice and feedback, Dr. Aguiñaga. Now I'm going to ask if any of our attendees have any questions they'd like to share as we wrap up our event tonight. So if anyone has any questions.
I have a question if no one else does.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Bernier.
Thank you, Dr. Aguiñaga, for attending this evening and sharing your autobiography with us. And I just have a question. You talked about your two important mentors that you rather happened into as they were supervising the work that you were doing. But in our last interview, we had a faculty member talk about inspiration that she was able to get from one scene in a movie that inspired her and to go on and to feel confident about herself and to set aspirational goals for herself. And I'm wondering if there was something or some other inspirational moments that you might share with us, either from movie or from your life or from music or something.
Well, thank you for asking that question. I appreciate that, Dr. Bernier. There's various movies that I enjoy, and I truly enjoy Tom Clancy movies, spy thriller movies, John Grisham movies. But I would say that since I'm also an avid concert music fan, and I sorely miss attending concerts, listening to various types of music has really inspired and drives me. Once I find a song that I really just love, it's sort of like the engine in my, excuse me, the oil in my engine that gets me going, that keeps me functioning and moving. There's one artist that some of you may know, and that's Neil Diamond. So you might be surprised, why Neil Diamond? I find his passion for his songs, for his music, and especially the one that he's known for, America, to be a true way of understanding and being part of that development. In that my mom came from Mexico, my dad was born in San Diego, but also Mexicano. But their struggles in the past made me aware of what I needed to do, and was to make them proud of what I could do for them, but also what I could do for myself, and then inspire others to hopefully follow in the same path.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any other questions? Feel free to grab the mic.
Well, I got a million. You got to know that. How about, you were talking about making the transition from high school to the university through the community college. Are there any particular academic skills that you discovered that you really needed badly, that you were able to latch onto, and then that were contributing to your university success? Anything in particular at the very, very granular level?
Sure. The one skill that we almost always have, and have a pretty good way of communicating, would be writing. My writing skills were pretty bad. Now that I look back in the career that I've had and the academic pathway that I followed, I left high school thinking that, hey, I'm fine. But then I discovered that my writing style was not satisfactory. And at the university, it was my English professor who told me, and she's the one that encouraged me, why don't you go back to the community college, work on your writing? You work on your writing, then that will keep you going. And that in itself, discovering the lack of proper grammar, proper structure in writing, and then refining that by taking the right courses, the right development, seeking tutoring at the Writing Center regarding those aspects. It certainly helped me out to continue on the pathway and to not just stop and then forget about a higher education degree.
Thank you for that. Okay, do we have any more questions? I see it's 7:25, so we have about 5 more minutes, so we can take maybe 1 or 2 other questions.
I have one for you.
Okay.
So I know that publishing is kind of a big deal moving forward in the academic world. How did you get into that?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, the first 10 years of my career, I was at university libraries. And as you express, publishing at some institutions, academic institutions, is a requirement. At other academic institutions, it's an option. So once I joined University of Houston, the chair of the reference department encouraged me to submit maybe a review. And this will show you when I began my career. At that time, they had CD-ROM products, not online databases. So it was a government resource that she wanted me to review, and she would guide me as to how to format that and so forth. And that was my first initial experience. And In my time, I've written a few articles and contributed book chapters regarding other colleagues of mine that were creating a edited book regarding librarians, people of color that were pursuing their degree and why they decided to pursue their degree. Those experiences, especially working with editors, also gave me a vast knowledge and vast experience into how to write correctly in an academic sense, but also how to be published. So for those of you that have the ability and have the willingness and have a great way of describing and enhancing in written format, I would certainly encourage you. And even if you're not pursuing an academic degree, academic librarianship pathway, if you're going into public library, that too would be a great skill to have. And not just writing, but also speaking publicly, providing presentations would be a great way to share information with your colleagues and the profession.
And I know we have many classes here at the iSchool that can help students build upon those skills. So do we have any, like one more question? I see it's 7:27. So I'm gonna try and keep us on time. So if anyone else has a question for Dr. Aguiñaga, feel free to grab the mic. Okay. All right, well, if there are no other questions for tonight, I will progress into our closing remarks. As I mentioned earlier on tonight, we are currently looking for a blog editor to join our team during this school year. So please feel free to reach out to us via our group's email address on the screen here if you have any questions about the role, and you can visit our website for more information. Thank you all for attending, and I would like to give a special thanks to Dr. Anthony Brunier for attending and sharing his research, and for Dr. José Aguiñaga for attending and sharing his experiences as a first-generation student. I hope you all have a great rest of your semester, and good night. And since there was a minor glitch at the beginning of the meeting, I will go back to our initial slides if anyone wants to see that information, just so it's on the recording. If you want to continue the conversation about our meeting tonight, you can join us on Twitter at #FGS_fall2020. And you can also visit our website, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So, thank you everyone for attending tonight. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.